Well, it was nice to say, oh, bye,
Oh, yeah.
Shane.
Yeah, I guess so. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Shane. Hi, Jim. Hi, Joan.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. Oh, you're Jim?
Hi, Leslie.
You're
There we
Jim.
go. I'm getting it fixed. Fan is so loud. You all surviving this heat and humidity over and wherever you are?
Yeah, I don't find it too bad, but I've always grown up in this kind of weather, so.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't sleep. It's awful. I'm from the South too. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I cannot stand the heat. I cannot stand the humidity. It drives me crazy. Nobody has air conditioning. It's awful.
I lived in North Carolina for a while, and this reminds me of North Carolina when the humidity is so
Oh, yeah.
heavy.
You walk through it.
Yeah, I know. And up in my office, well, it was 86 this morning, and I got this little portable AC going for a while, and it's down to like 80, but I had put my hair in a ponytail. I just feel like I'm gonna melt.
That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a drag. But I think it's gonna break in a day or two, so that's
Yeah, the rain's certainly helping.
good. I haven't been outside, so I don't know. I'm hoping.
I hope Jocelyn's okay. They had some severe weather up there.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, some of the storms
Right.
went up there, the last bunch.
Oh, good. Here comes Jocelyn.
You're not talking to me? Okay.
Hey, Jocelyn.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm glad to see you. We're hoping you weren't getting severe storms and not able to join us.
Nope. I think it passed a little while ago.
Good.
Can you hear my fan in the background?
No, I know. I have mine on too. I turned the AC off though because it was so loud, like I could barely hear myself. And it hardly works. Still 80 degrees in my office up here.
Yeah.
Go. You're wet. Get. Go on, you're wet. Sorry about that.
It's funny. She wants to be with you, Leslie.
Yeah, she just scratched my arm when she jumped off my lap before, so. She only comes in when she gets soaking wet in the rain, so. All right, well, I have 5:32. I know people are still gonna come in, but because of the heat and stuff. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from April and May?
Yes. Motion.
Okay, you and I are the only ones here, so all in
Oh, sweet.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we can turn it over to Jocelyn and get going on her ideas.
Get jiggy with it.
All right, so I think what we have, let me just turn my volume up a little here because I can't hear you guys over my fan. I think what's on our agenda today is to review, oh, darn it. Well, I wanted to review the input and feedback that we got at the June 3rd forum. And of course, I neglected to bring my notes with me. I don't know, I hope maybe some other people brought their notes in terms of some of the feedback we got. But I did send you, and we can go over if you want, the polling results from that meeting. And then talk again about the strategies and goals for the housing plan, based on that feedback and any other feedback or thoughts that you all have. Since the last time we met, we also did that mapping of suitability for septic systems on the properties in and around the existing town commercial centers, so we could talk about that. And that was, as you know, to sort of inform one of the possible strategies was thinking about additional, zoning to allow additional density in and around the existing commercial centers. So the mapping is, to sort of help inform that discussion. And then just to talk about the next steps for the housing plan development process and, further forums for, public input and that sort of thing. So that's what I have on the list. Sound good?
Yeah.
So maybe to start off, we'll talk about the June 3rd forum. And I'll screen share the polling results. While I'm putting that up there, does anybody else have any takeaways from that forum that they want to mention?
Well, I guess a couple of things that I felt that, overall, the attendees were supportive of what we were doing, in general terms, supportive of what we're trying to do. And the comments I got in the chat and the few that we had at the end were, this is great, we need to get the word out. So I think that's encouraging. I thought Dimitri shared some really great ideas about really trying to get the word out and trying to think about some new ways that aren't just electronic through either the selectman's email or through the forums. I thought his idea of putting together a flyer or brochure, something that could be handed out at the market, was a great idea. And Jocelyn, I didn't know if there was any money left in the grant to do something like that. I'm working on a flyer for something else, and the printer that I use for the town newsletter had some really great deal. I could get something printed pretty inexpensively that we could hand out either at the farmer's market or leave it at the market or at Marty's or the library. You know, we could distribute it everywhere, anywhere people would let us. So I thought that was a good idea, just to share the story and, you know, explain how people can get involved.
Yeah, no, I like that idea too. And I think, I mean, there's no question that we can develop a flyer, you know, how much money you want to spend on it in terms of like it being professionally graphically designed and or on glossy paper or whatever. We could discuss that. But obviously, you know, we could easily do a non-professionally graphically designed flyer with the basic information on it and print it very inexpensively on regular paper and have it available for people. And I guess the question would be, what do you think would be the best thing, you know, like what's the overall goal of the flyer?
Well,
I think people need to be, you had those questions that on the polling questions, were people aware? I think just maybe a brief statement of each one of those questions with, you know, are you aware you could donate, etc. And let them know we have a housing commission, that they're more than welcome to attend or join. Keep the flyers simple, nothing dramatic, nothing glossy, just very basic, simple graphics. If we even need them, you know, maybe a picture of one of the 3 units that are already here by the trust, just so they know that it wouldn't be detrimental to the town. And then if they want questions, and make sure that they know that the website's available and that the cog is available. If they want more information, they can check all those areas and just contact the selectmen for questions and they can be referred off. And that it's a town effort, you know, because of the plan of conservation and development, that all commissions are basically, most of them are working on helping with this plan. So just basics.
Yeah.
Well, what
Elaborate.
Leslie, what do you think about adding any sort of information in terms of how to, and I don't know what the best way to present this information, but to sort of mention some of those points that we were talking about in terms of donating land and sort of
I
those
think
points.
that would come under some of the questions that were presented at the forum.
Right. So,
And then,
okay, cool.
You know, I didn't print out any of those things, so my mind's a little foggy, but you know, whatever some of the answers were, or Jocelyn had, you know, where she got the information from, it's all available information. I just don't know how much we want to get into in a flyer.
Right. You don't want to
I'd rather have people contact people to come to a meeting, ask questions, check the websites, get involved.
Why don't I, based on what you guys have just said, why don't I draft something and then we can always add to it or subtract from it. But it could be, you know, it could be one page front and back.
Mhm.
I think it's important to include at least a little bit of the statistics from the first one that we sort of reviewed at this one, just like,
I
because
think
that's,
at this point, statistics are people aren't interested. They want to know what the next step is. They've seen the statistics. They can look at the first forum. They can check the pages. I wouldn't read a flyer that has statistics. Questions,
Well,
how to get answers.
the thing is, Leslie, what Dimitri was saying is for those who have not participated yet, you know, just outlining the affordable, you know, where we are now, the affordable housing issue Washington is facing, to try to engage more people. Because once they see those statistics, they're usually pretty pretty startled. They're like, wow, we have an issue here, you know, we need to really address this. So I'm not talking about the whole like 20 pages, but maybe the top 4, you know, we have 2% of affordable housing, our median housing price is X, you know,
Yeah, I
like
could get that. I just don't want.
just a summary.
I don't want a ton of statistics because people won't read it. Wayne, go ahead. He's got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Leslie on this. I think it should be simple. I think it should be homespun rather than professionally designed and glossy and whatever. I think that would actually have a reverse impact. I'm fine with it being a front and back, but you know, as long as it's a single sheet handout. But I think it needs to be a comfortable front and page layout. It can't be too crowded. It can't be too whatever, because I think she's right. I think people won't read it. And you could clearly indicate on the flyer that for more info, go see ... And if they really care, they'll go and read it, you know, on the Housing Commission's page. But you really have to make it easy on the eyes and bullet point style and deliver the message. And if you want more info, go to this website and there's more info than you could ever absorb in one sitting.
All right. So, yeah, I'll draft something and bring it back to you guys. Leslie, are you hosting the meeting?
No, I think Michelle is.
Oh, can you make me co-host? Because I can't screen share.
Yep. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. All right. So I don't think we need to go through all of these, but just again, in summary, we had about 31 meeting attendees. About 20 people were responding to the polling questions. Sometimes a few more responded, sometimes a few less. But you know, 75% of those who voted supported the overarching goals. 58% supported the goal of 30 units over the next 5 years. 26% thought that the goal should actually be higher. And 16% thought it should be lower. But I think kind of overall, you know, and again, this is up to you guys in terms of whether you want to make changes or not, but it seems like at least a majority of the folks who answered the questions thought you guys were on the right track with
It's curious, the 26% that thought it should be higher. I'd like to know some of their reasoning, but of course we don't have that. I mean, they just answered a question that knows that we're working on something for over the next 5 years, and they think 30 should be higher. I find that unique.
Yep.
This is a question that I think needs to be on the flyer. The next one.
Yep. So these are the questions about whether they knew that they could donate land, that they could qualify for a tax deduction, and that they could subdivide. And then seemed like people were supportive of, again, the people that attended and answered the polling questions were supportive of the idea of 2-family homes, of the idea of townhouse style homes in the commercial districts, and of allowing the conversion of existing larger homes that were built before, can't remember if it's 1984 or whatever. And also support for Wayne's overlay zone concept. So again, support for the Washington Community Housing Trust building additional units. And possibly creating a housing rehab loan program. So support for regularly funding the Affordable Housing Fund. Yeah, those are the results. And again, I think generally it seems like folks who voted thought that the strategies proposed were going in the right direction. So unless anybody wants to talk about any other input that came out of that forum, we can talk about the specific strategies again in light of this information.
Mhm.
Let me just call those up. All right. How do you guys want to do this? I
I have
don't.
one thing that I need to have you add under, it continue to increase the awareness of the down payment. You have the Housing Development Fund out of Waterbury. Could you please add the one out of Danbury? Because they're the ones that right now are supporting our down payment and are vetting the people that apply for the down payment assistance. So just by putting Housing Development Fund of Danbury also, I think. would be-
Housing Development Fund is there, but because
Well,
they're,
you've got the Housing Services of Waterbury, but like I would like to get Danbury in there.
yeah, it's just the Housing Development Fund. So the name of Neighborhood Housing Services is Neighborhood Housing Services of Waterbury.
Okay, and
But the name of HDF is Housing Development Fund, not Housing Development Fund of Danbury. So that's why I could put Danbury, Connecticut in parentheses. That's one of their offices.
yeah, maybe because they're the ones that so far out of all our applications, they've done all the vetting and all the classes
Yeah,
for our 10 applicants. So
I
I
just
think
didn't want to confuse anybody because that
right.
is the actual name of the organization is, in the other case, is NHS of Waterbury. But
That's the thought, I just know that we've been using them, so. I mean, Waterbury has the classing now too, and I don't think anybody's taken any of the coupons yet, have they? From our area? I don't think.
no. All right, yeah, I can add Danbury in parentheses after it or something.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
We did change the language in the Steep Rock Association one based on Michelle's conversation with them, but it's not too different. It's just worded a little differently in terms of making sure that we understand that land that is appropriate for conservation should be conserved, but that if there is land offered to them that is not appropriate for conservation, they could, mention the possibility of housing on that.
Mhm.
So, I guess, are there any other, I don't think we necessarily need to go through all of these again unless you guys have questions, comments. We could talk about this overlay zone idea in the context of those maps.
Yeah, that would be great if we could. I'm yeah.
So, do you want me to pull the maps up on the screen, or do you?
Yeah, would you, just so that we can all sort of see the same thing, if
Yeah.
that's okay, if you don't mind.
which one do you want to start with? Pick a village.
Oh yeah, let's do Depot. Depot first.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was the last one I was looking at. And I noticed that the hash marks to indicate the business district don't seem to cover the entire business district, so.
Yeah, just ignore that. My
Okay,
thing, and I don't know, Wayne might know more about this than I do, but it's roughly where the district is, but Stacy is working on getting the most up-to-date information zoning layer on there. So,
Okay.
but I mean, this is the general, I told her it didn't have to be exactly, perfect, because this is just for the purposes of looking in that area. Because my understanding is that you guys were thinking about an overlay zone that would be in and around the commercial center. So it doesn't really matter if it exactly follows the commercial district boundaries. So ignore, kind of, that layer is being worked on, I will say.
well, okay, that's good. I have a question, and I see Wayne raised his hand because my question is actually probably to Wayne. When we're thinking about in and around, so we're thinking of possibly expanding, because I think most people are sort of in support of the concept of more denser or clustered housing in and around our business centers. How does, I don't know how we do that. Do you say any adjacent property, or do you sit within a half mile of the center, or, I just am wondering Wayne's thoughts on how that would even work.
Well, I'm so glad you asked. In the one-page draft that I've had floating around for quite some time now, one of the issues you always have, and the first thing that'll be out of the zoning commission's mouths are like, okay, where is this district exactly going to be? Because ultimately they get to decide that. So what I put in the draft, just as a starting point, is basically saying, look, all the properties that lie within a business district are contained in the overlay zone, but they're contained in their entirety. As we know, there are a lot of properties in the business district that are what we call split lots. Part of the property lies in the business district, and the rest of it lies in the residential district. So I thought, well, for starters, let's just include all of the properties in the business districts in their entirety. That will make by definition, that will create an overlay zone that is already at least a little bit larger than the business district. And I also put language in there that said that the zoning commission may add parcels to the overlay zone as they see fit and appropriate, as long as the district remains contiguous. The last thing you want is somebody applying to be in an overlay that's out in the middle of the farmland or the forest land, and then you get a situation of what some people call spot zoning, which is, I don't think, is something that would ever fly in this town. So you need to have that word contiguous as part of the regulations, in my opinion, so that the overlay really does overlay the business district for which it pertains. Does that answer your question, Michelle, in terms of what comprises the zone itself?
Yeah, because I think the contiguous, that means anything that's touching. I guess you would want to not allow that to go in perpetuity, because then you could get an arm of contiguous, one applies and then the next applies and then the next applies, and you could start heading out.
Well, well, again, each of these, once the zone is set, the zoning commission may add parcels, not shall add parcels. In other words, if somebody at a certain point you would think that the zoning commission would look at an application and go, okay, this is, this overlay zone is, these properties are no longer in what we consider the depot or no longer in what we consider Marbledale. And, at a certain point, you would hope and you would believe that, common sense would prevail.
Well, and, each of those those would be changes to, any parcel added would be changes to the zoning regulations requiring a public hearing. So
Correct.
you would get public input and public feedback on any addition to the overlay district.
Correct. And so when I created the draft, I was like, well, you have to tell them, you have to provide some starting point. I mean, you can't just, you can't give a zoning commission a blank slate or something like that and tell them to draw it. That's not really, that's not how they operate. So, but I wanted to comment more on these maps in terms of the septic capabilities. And I have a general comment on this. Now, obviously, you're going to see certain areas that are more favorable than others. But in the grander scheme, we have to remember here that the town has soil-based zoning. So they, in terms of properties that we may consider to be less capable than others in terms of septic capacity, that's going to be determined when anybody submits any application and has to do a soil density calculation. So in these overlay zones, we are reducing the density requirements, but we're not reducing the soil-based requirements. In other words, lousy soil is still lousy soil. And, and even though instead of, in the calculations that I put forward in the draft, for example, I reduced the density that's required to build a house, but I reduced it proportionally for each soil class type. So, because we're not addressing soil-based zoning at all in this overlay, and then I don't believe we should, it's kind of a self-limiting factor. I mean, it's not going to open the door to somebody proposing a level of density on a certain parcel that would be inappropriate from a septic standpoint because it won't pass the septic standpoint. Does everyone understand what I'm getting at there? Or not?
Yeah.
Or am I being too obtuse?
No, I think yes, and I think the point of this was to sort of show us the potential, not. This isn't for approval, nobody's
And
going to look.
also the lack of potential.
Or lack of potential, right? Like how hard do we want to fight for an overlay zone in an area where there's very little potential to get any higher density housing anyway? So I think it's informative, but it certainly doesn't bypass the zoning. The health department zoning, they need to sign off on a working septic. That's just that's the parameters where we live within.
Sure. So you could say if you look at a specific village and you see a scarcity of well-drained soils, then if you want to create an overlay around that business district, you're going to have to make it a little larger than you thought. Or maybe we decide we don't want an overlay around all four. I mean, conceptually, I have said that we should really consider one around all four business districts, but maybe in the end we decide not to do that.
Well, and I think that's a really good question. And I guess I was hoping that you guys maybe had time to look at these and come to some, because these areas better than I do in terms of what's already on these parcels. Does it seem to you that there is much potential within these areas? Again, enough to go through a process of creating an overlay zone? And is that true for all four of them or just some of them? I guess I'm curious about your thoughts on that? Wayne,
I
did,
I think it's worth it.
yeah,
It's just informative to see the impact it may or may not have. I think the Woodville area is very interesting because it has, I guess it's because of the stream there. The business district lies in the middle of some high potential, completely surrounded by extremely low potential. So an overlay in that case might not make a lot of sense, because if it has to be contiguous, I mean, there's some large parcels though that cover it. So I guess it's kind of worth trying for all four and seeing what may or may not come of them. I would hate to exclude this and then have one of those larger parcels become available.
The other way you could approach this is to say in theory, I mean, is sort of how we've been doing it so far. It's like, we would like to consider this for all four business districts, but I mean, it's obvious that there are some districts that would be better suited for this than others. I mean, knowing the four villages, I would probably say the best chance for something that would be feasible would probably be Marbledale.
I agree.
I agree.
And so maybe as a community, we say, okay, look, we don't need to do all four of these at once. Let's pick one and examine it. And if you look, my rough, viewing of the maps tells me that Marbledale has the most potential.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things the Planning Commission has talked about on more than one occasion is that we would like Marbledale to receive more attention in the next plan, because it's kind of gotten short shrift in previous plans. And, we tend as a community to focus a lot of efforts on the depot, and things are, maybe we should be, changing our focus a little bit here. So, if we pick one to focus on, I think that would be my choice personally.
I think that would be a good idea, because you're right, Wayne. We do focus on the depot and people forget that we have four other villages, because it's just never brought forth enough, because they don't do a lot of things like it gets done in the depot. And that's understandable. So yeah, I'd like to see Marbledale maybe be the chosen one in the beginning process to make the suggestion.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes sense to me, especially since there's the largest potential there. And we're already sort of pretty dense and built in the depot that's not on slopes. So that makes a lot of sense. Wayne, I have a question about, you were talking about all their properties in their entirety. And if you have a property that's partially in the commercial, partially not, well, I guess more what I'm thinking about is if somebody has a larger piece of property and they've already got a commercial building on it, but they have enough room for some residential, whether it's the old school, apartments up above, the shop down below, or it's, the back acre of the 4 acres or something like that. Do we have a process for allowing residential building in a piece of property that's already commercial?
you could do that under an overlay zone.
Yeah, and housing is not banned in the business district. I mean, housing is, we actually have single family homes within business districts.
Right.
So,
I guess what I'm talking about is mixed use. Having both, is that okay?
well,
Overlay.
an overlay would provide for that. Plus, in Marbledale specifically, there are regulations already on the books that allow the zoning commission under the special permit process to look at a parcel that's a split lot, and on a case-by-case basis, allow that parcel to be used for business uses. So it's not a big stretch to consider maybe, a mixed use for a property. So again, this, this would still be under the, I think in my draft, I said that age restricted mixed use and multifamily would be by special permit, and that single family development in the overlay would be by right. So the draft language I set for the overlay specifically says that, that multi-use could be, permitted.
Okay.
So I guess one of my other questions for this group is, in terms of what is presented in the housing plan in terms of strategies and or I guess next steps, like, would it make sense to include, Wayne's proposal in the plan, or do we just refer to it and then, again, I guess I'm wondering whether you want to take some time and further develop that overlay zone concept here, or just, again, support the concept in the plan and then again, and then hand it to the zoning commission. Is Janet here tonight, or?
I think so. I think I saw her phone number.
We have 2 phone numbers and I just don't know who they are.
Hers ends with a 3.
Then Janet.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi. Do you have an opinion about whether the zoning commission would prefer to receive a more detailed proposal for an overlay zone, or would prefer to just that the concept generally is recommended for the commission to look into?
I guess I take the middle of the road. I don't want it to be so vague that they can't get a grip, but I don't think it should be so detailed that they feel that their jurisdiction is being ignored. I mean, I thought the general terms Wayne talked about today sounded good.
Okay.
So maybe we should include Wayne's proposal or draft.
If you're
Well-
talking to me, I didn't hear that.
I think we maybe should include, if Wayne's willing to include his proposal. So that, it sounds like it's in simple terms for understanding, and then the zoning commission can really review it and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should definitely include the concept in the plan and maybe the language of Wayne's proposal, because it's already, I think, been presented at least once. But I hear what Janet's saying. Like, we want to leave wiggle room for strategy to evolve moving forward at once zoning has their input. We don't want it to be so prescriptive. And I think it's going to be the responsibility of the Housing Commission and any of those interested in helping over the next 5 years of the plan continue the conversation. So the plan really just needs to say, we support the concept.
Well, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, right. And then,
Support, because we
and
can't tell the
leaves-
zoning anything.
right.
We can just say, this is what we would like to support and would like you to review and understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, no, I hear Janet and I agree. I think it does need to be the middle ground. It can't be, we support an overlay zone.
Right.
It can't be, here's a finished zoning regulation,
We can't write zoning.
and adopt and
regulations.
add to your zoning. It's gotta
Right.
be that middle, like, Which I do think that Wayne's proposal in a lot of ways is that middle ground.
I agree.
Right.
And I'd like to see that, put into place.
So,
Well, you know,
Starting
sorry,
point.
go ahead,
Wayne, are
Wayne.
you okay with this?
well, I'm happy to, if you like. I mean, my goal in drafting that was to show basically as a one pager how it could be structured. I mean, I always fully expected that something like that
Right.
would be gone over in detail by the zoning commission because they're the detail people. That's what they do.
Right.
If you like, I'm happy to create a one pager, version that you've already seen and just substitute Marbledale for the depot. And if that's where we think we would want to go, and then we kind of say, we've provided, provided an example, or something, or a proof of I think I called it when I presented it to people a proof of concept.
Okay.
I wanted to let people know that you could do something like this and you wouldn't have to create 20 pages of zoning regulations to do it.
Gotcha. I agree.
So can you guys see the map I have up on the screen now, the whole map of Washington?
Yeah, that's a septic
Yep.
map.
And I guess I just brought this up because I think one of the other things that I did hear at that forum, at least from Dimitri, was the interest in not necessarily limiting it to the commercial centers. And I just wondered again if, when you guys look at this map and the septic suitability, whether anything jumps out to you in terms of a potential other area you would want to point out could be considered or not. Just throwing that out there.
Well, what about areas where that sort of housing or sort of more condensed housing already exists in our town? Like I don't know where this would be. I mean, I guess there's really only 3 places that have that.
Are you talking about the housing trust where their properties are? Is that what you're asking, James?
No, more like, I mean, those, what are they called? Beebrook Crossing? I pass it all the time. I can never remember.
Yeah, that's a condo. But
Yeah,
that-
Right, but
condos.
that's still that similar sort of condensed housing though, right?
Yeah, and along with that, Shane, I was thinking if we're going to consider things that aren't in the business districts, to either look at where that kind of housing already exists or
Right.
or on like our major state roads, like take 47, the business district
Exactly.
starts,
Right.
and Beebrook is off of that, and then it goes all the way down and continues to 202, another major road. That's a possibility. I don't know that everyone would support that, but it's a way to just start thinking about it.
You're on the exact path there, Michelle. When the planning commission, not the 20, I think the 2003 plan, maybe the one before, I can't remember, but they actually prioritized locations for denser development. Of course, priority 1 was the village centers. Priority 2 was where dense housing already exists. Priority 3 was along major arteries. And the last priority, of course, was on the farmland and forest land. So your instincts are spot on.
I'm just going to suggest, only because I recall all too painfully the agony the zoning commission went through in the early 2000s when it was trying to come up with multifamily regulations for residential zones, that if you're going to add the possibility of adding the residential districts in the affordable housing plan, you sort of do it phase 1, phase 2. Do phase 1 in the districts have a few projects that people can see really worked well and look at it. They're not ugly, they fit in with the town, and then phase two to try to bring it into more residential areas.
Well, in New Preston, you have the Church Street, the Washington Community Trust. So that's off the top of New Preston Village. That's a dense thing. Off of 109, you have Dodge Farm. That's another nice area where there's housing. And then you have Riverwood down on River Road. So those are the three areas. Well, now you have the Vincent property over on 202, but that's only three units or four, 3 units, but it's still there.
Well, and let me just, I think, clarify one thing, which is that for me, all of this overlay zone talk is probably the more kind of market-driven, creating downsizing options kind of stuff, not necessarily, because honestly, if the Warren Community Housing Trust wants to build affordable housing, the easiest way for them to do it is an 830G.
Right.
And I'm guessing that no matter how carefully you write this overlay zone regulation, there's going to be something in it probably that will either it won't cover an area where they want to build their next project, or there'll be something in it that doesn't work for them. You know, I'm just, I guess, pointing out that I think that this strategy is under that section, which is create downsizing options, create other options that the market will create, like will support, like Beebrook, you know. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be the one that creates the statutorily defined affordable housing, although it could be used that way. But I'm guessing, especially if it's only allowed by special permit, that an affordable housing developer would choose to just go ahead and do an 830G rather than going through. But I don't know. I'm just.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It
think
was
you're
never
right.
my intention that the overlay zone would give us capital A affordable housing. That was never that was never a consideration of mine in the process. I mean, what I've been looking at is trying to create some policy that could encourage small A affordable housing. I mean, we actually have tools in the box for capital A affordable housing. There's 8-30G. We have 2 organizations that build official affordable housing now in town, Trust and Habitat. The Housing Commission has a down payment assistance program. Now, are these things giving us enough capital A affordable housing? Well, of course not, but they are tools that we do have in the box, and they are providing that housing, although not nearly at a level we would like. My concern for a long time has been that we have no tools in the box for small A affordable housing.
Right.
None, 0. So at least an overlay would give us a tool.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone understood.
Right.
And I think we do have examples of that, the downsizing options like Beebrook or Quarry Ridge. And so if we were to come up with policy that would allow something like that, but in the places that we, I think Janet's point of phase 1, phase 2 is maybe a good idea. But if we look at our village centers and either where it already exists or the state roads, we might be able to encourage another 1 or 2 of those types of downsizing options.
All right. Oh, I added this in, so if it's okay, I'll move on to the next goal section, which is rental opportunities. And I know at previous meetings, we've talked about the idea of, if, because some landlords some people that own property and rent it in the town of Washington are already basically renting it at affordable rates. And we talked about how could the town get credit for, somebody renting their accessory apartment or their whatever property affordably. One thing that has changed, and partly due to COVID and the federal funding that is out there that's coming through the state, is that there are now a lot more vouchers out there, that housing choice vouchers, than there were previously. And so basically what that does is, if a potential tenant has a voucher, the voucher pays the difference between what the tenant can afford to pay based on their income and what the market rate, rental rate is. So what I added in here is this, that one thing potentially that, for example, the Housing Commission and or the housing plan could do is let people know about the opportunity to, like, if somebody wanted to rent to a voucher holder, how could they do that? And how could they find out more information about that process? Because my understanding is currently there are more voucher holders than there are places for them to rent. Because again, we have a rental housing shortage everywhere. So I don't know, I put that in red because it was just something I learned about more recently. I don't know if that's something you guys want in here or not, but it's just an idea about, if people who own property and rent it in Washington are interested, if you rent to a voucher holder, it would get on the state's list. It would be under the one of those.
Is there a time frame for how long the voucher is for? Or if somebody moves out and they don't get another voucher, do we lose percentage then?
I didn't hear
Yes.
Okay. What I asked was if we do this part down here on the bottom, which I like the whole idea of letting people know about the vouchers. If somebody uses a voucher and the landlord is agreeable and then they move out, do we lose that affordable percentage once they move out if another person with a voucher doesn't come in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie, it works the same way as Chaffam mortgages. As long so if the person with a Chaffam mortgage sells or refinances and they no longer have a Chaffam mortgage, we lose the point.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I still think this might be something to look into.
Yeah, I mean,
we have a couple of landlords.
I had been under the impression that and I think this was the case for a long time, that there just really weren't vouchers out there.
Right.
But it sounds like, especially now, there are voucher holders out there that aren't able to find a place to rent. So if there are landlords interested and willing to do that, then we should just help them get the information about how they could do it if they wanted to.
I think that's a good idea. I like that idea.
I do too. And it sounds a lot like what we were trying to figure out how to do with people who have already rent out their accessory apartments or whatever it is they have. We were trying to figure out how to get them counted as affordable if people are willing. And we were trying to figure out, well, can the housing trust, vet the renters for them? But if they have a voucher, then it's already done. So that's
right.
a wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, is find some way of doing that without trying to create another program that has to be administered and, you know,
Right, the program's already there.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
getting the word out.
fantastic. And then all we have to do is promote it. And if the state actually, did you say they pay the difference? So they make them whole so they can,
yeah, I mean, again,
Yeah.
I don't know all the details, but my understanding is that that is what a voucher does. It pays the difference between what you can afford, you know, 30% of your income, and what the market rent is.
Right,
that's fantastic. That's a great program.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, I'd
now
like
the skunk at the party here, of course, is that there's virtually no rental housing available in Washington right
I
yeah,
know.
right,
I know.
but
Yeah.
that may not always be the case.
exactly. At least if we have it in place or if something comes up, because we have those apartments in the depot. I know they've been sold, but I don't know what company owns them, but maybe they might be willing, if they get a vacancy, to consider somebody with a voucher. You never know if they're not aware of this situation. I don't even know who owns that.
Wait, which apartments?
Huh?
Which apartments?
The ones across from you.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I can find out.
Wayne,
I
do you
mean,
remember? I forget who bought those.
Is that the Ellsworth apartment? Used to be the
Used to be
I
Ellsworth.
can't remember.
Yep, used to be Ellsworth.
I should remember who bought them from the church, but for the life of me,
I know, I can't remember either. Well, I'm sure we can find out.
To ask them, right. That would be a way to go, to maybe inquire. Yeah, I'd like to get this added to our thing as a informational.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a huge creator, but why not get the word out about it?
Right, I'd like to, right, exactly. I agree.
And it is possible that some folks, again, with accessory apartments or, you know, maybe they don't usually rent them. They're just guest apartments, but they want to do well while doing good.
Right.
I
Thanks
like
for
that.
finding it.
What?
I said thanks for finding it and
Yeah.
adding it to the list.
Yeah, I think it's a nice potential opportunity. So there's nothing else that I added to this that's different than the last time we talked about it. Anybody want to talk about any of the rest of this?
You had just in red, if you scroll down, did we want to put a unit goal under downsizing options or no, just try to push for those concepts? I feel like 5 years is sort of a short time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
Yeah.
don't want to see a unit goal there.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
this time, maybe next time on the POCD, but not, let's see how things progress.
If we manage to get some of these concepts into zoning, through the process, then in the
Right.
next 5-year plan, we can maybe set a goal.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
I think it's also nice to maybe focus the goal on affordable housing.
Yep,
Because if you mix in, again, lowercase a affordable, then it gets more confusing, I think.
Oh, that's a good point.
All right, so that's where we are. The strategies. So I guess the next step, I'm gonna stop sharing. The next step from my perspective is to start actually drafting the plan, which is really kind of putting together all of the pieces of the information that we have, like the housing needs assessment, the survey results, the results from the forums, and the strategies and goals into a easy to read document. So that will be my next step. And then, I think it's a great idea to create a flyer. I don't know if anyone wants to, volunteer to, we can't just throw the stack of flyers at the.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Well, and I was gonna say, I'm also working with our, on the sustainability committee. Communication about our affordable housing and plan is something that I'm working on for our equity. It's a big, long story. I don't need to explain, but anyway, I will be working on helping to reach out to people that have not been part of the conversation to make them aware of the affordable housing plan as it is. So I'm happy to work on the flyer as well, or hand it out or include it in whatever I'm doing, however it meshes together.
Can I ask you guys a question about in terms of flyers and stuff? I'm just thinking, you know, a little bit about the environmental impact of all of the printing and everything like that. And I'm just sort of curious, in general, has there been any sort of, has anybody tried any, like just putting up a QR code? And I mean, still being there and having a table and everything, but instead of handing out a flyer, they scan the QR code and look at it and can read it there. Or, I mean, maybe that's too
That's too technical if you ask me, because I'm not.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I just wanted to, you know, try to save the earth, you know, that's
I
all.
think as long as it's kept as one page, people might just scan it and you can always show them where the recycle bin is.
That's true. Okay.
Maybe you could go through the town's recycle bin and we could print them on the back of like the old town budget or something.
Hey,
Oh,
that goes to
yeah.
post office.
Dude, that's such a good idea.
It is, except it'll be so confusing.
I know.
I like that though. That's
You can go
good
to the
thinking.
post office and get everything that's been recycled in there.
Actually, they probably didn't print very many budgets anyway. Last year's was all virtual and this year's they just printed a summary. So it was like 4 pages.
Well, I'll try to get you flyer sooner rather than later. And because the next meeting of this group is July 13th.
Right.
And then, you know, I guess, so I would hope to have a draft plan to you before that. And what I think I'm going to be doing is sort of, well, I'm sort of designing them in PowerPoint. And then once we have them finalized, then I'll put them into a format that's harder to edit but looks nicer. But what I would say is for you guys to be thinking about, and or if you could send me beautiful pictures of Washington that I can include in the plan. Plans are always nicer to look at when you've got beautiful pictures in them of your town. So literally anything that's appropriate. If you want to just email me pictures, I can start, you know, compiling them so that I have them to put in the
Do it
plan.
through a cell phone?
Oh yeah, take a picture
Okay.
with your cell phone and email it to me. Yeah.
Hey, Jocelyn, I'm just thinking about like the Salisbury plan, which is the only one I've read recently. I think I looked at some others before, but there were definitely some theme, you know, like businesses when you were talking about worker housing, or, I mean, just let us know if there are more specific type things you're looking for. Children, you know, something at school, or people attending something, you know, versus we can landscape you to death because it's beautiful
Yeah.
here.
We could do
But-
the pavilion. We could do the
Right.
tunnel down at Steep Rock, all points of interest. You know, we could do.
Yeah, so just as you start putting it together, if you're, you know, there's
Yeah,
like
well,
a
I
section and you,
No, we'll spend some time talking about the opportunities in town center. So town center pictures would be good. Obviously, if you take pictures of people, you want to have permission from
Right.
them. But I love pictures with people in them.
I mean, we might want to even consider the Chippewa Ag STEM building, seeing as how it's probably looking nice. just as
Stunning.
a point in question for housing too, for people.
Mhm. It's a good idea.
Also, I will craft a new overlay zone draft
Great.
that will be for Marbledale. It'll be specific to Marbledale, and we'll use that as our sample language, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne.
I'll take care of that and send it all to you in
Thank you,
advance.
Wayne.
You're the
Great.
best.
So probably a good plan for now, since it's 6:40, is, again, I'll work on drafting a flyer, the plan, and I'll try to get it to you, the week before July 13th, so you have time to look at it. And then we can talk again about any other, other outreach forums you might want to do, or other content you might want to add to the plan.
Do
And
you think another public forum is feasible? I was kind of disappointed in the numbers that came to this last one. We had a better response the first time. I don't know. Were there people that signed up that didn't show up? Did we have a high registration fee on this one too?
We had not as high. I think close to 50 were signed up, and not every. And then we had 31 actually
Right.
come. Yeah, well, the other thing to talk about is we're in this sort of in between where some of the commissions are starting to go in person. So I don't know if people are zoomed out. I mean, we're getting to summer. I think I kind of feel like the next meeting should be the presentation of the plan. I think attendance is just going to drop off with each one.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
So
agree.
whether that, and the town is working on hybrid so that people can come in person or attend virtually. I don't know where, I think we're trying it tomorrow for our sustainability meeting. I don't know where we are with that. So those are also things to think about. I don't know, summer might be kind of tough. Well, and the other thing is we've done, did we do a Tuesday and a Thursday? We did evening. I don't know if we want to try a weekend.
No, I don't think weekend in the summer is a good idea.
Well, definitely not in the summer. I'm not even sure summer is a good idea, period, but.
Well, what's our time frame, Jocelyn? I know you asked for an extension. I don't want to drag this out way too long. I'd like to, we're heading towards the finish line, and I'd really like to get it finished.
yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone wants to drag it out any longer than it has to be.
Right.
Technically, we want to get it done. We have to get it done by December. But I
I
think
don't want to wait that long.
we want to work through the process. So I'm wondering if maybe a next public forum could be presenting the draft housing plan to the Planning Commission in maybe September.
Wayne, you're planning what?
I think it's a great idea.
You think
And
September is
it
a
will,
good time frame?
well, whatever time frame you want, I'll make the room for it. But I think that the next public, presentation or forum or whatever actually should be, the Housing Commission presenting, the plan to the Planning Commission. And it also will have the added benefit, the Planning Commission, is empowered, of course, to call public hearings. So we will actually call it, we will call a public hearing for it, and that will allow the Housing Commission to present the plan. It will allow, and then the Planning Commission can manage the public comment portion of the meeting,
Good.
which will be hopefully a civilized discourse, because yours truly will be running the meeting. So.
Hey, would you consider not only presenting it to the Planning Commission, but to a joint Planning Zoning Commission meeting to try to pull zoning in a little sooner and get them enthused?
That's a good idea.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm fine with it if the zoning commission's fine with it. I mean, That
Well,
would
I
be
can't
quite a,
guarantee how many of them will show up, but I think it would be great if some of them would attend.
Well, they were pretty, when we did the last thing with zoning, I think they seemed to be acceptable of the information. So this would just further the next steps that we've completed, so.
Yeah.
You're right, it's up to them whether they're gonna show up or not, but
I'm also wondering, I feel like it just might be better in September than in the summer, but I don't know, Wayne, what do you think?
Well, why don't we see how long it takes us to work through the process anyway? I mean, you guys will be looking at a draft in July.
mhm.
I think we could easily take August off or be doing more revisions and adding things. So I think it could easily be September before you're ready to have and you want to give people, again, advance notice, publish the draft plan in time for people to look at it before the public hearing. So I think September's probably, I don't know if it's realistic to think we could do it before September.
Well, that's good. That's good. Because I was just concerned that trying to meet in the summer might be a challenge. So,
No, we'll go with September with Wayne with the planning and include the zoning commission. Is that okay, Wayne?
I'm just going to throw out there that, sorry, Wayne, that was a question for you. Planning
No,
is the first week of September, whereas zoning is the last week. So maybe we want to.
well, I think we would probably call a special meeting because in September, the regular planning commission meeting is actually September 1st, which is actually it's actually before Labor Day weekend. It's just because of a quirk in the calendar. So this is a case where I would actually schedule a public hearing as a special, as a special meeting.
Good
I
idea.
like that idea.
Yeah, I can, I have the ability to do that.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
I'm writing down that you're going to be doing that.
that's no problem. I have faced the madding crowd before. I can do it again.
I'll be right there with you, not a problem. All right, are we pretty well set? Anything else? Anybody have any other information they'd like to put forth or?
But
Leslie,
Yes,
hi, it's Chris.
hi Chris.
How are you? One observation I had, I was really pleased to see the mapping that Jocelyn was able to put together. It's just a really helpful tool. Years ago, also Janet put together some larger format maps for the business centers that should be still somewhere in the land use department. But the point I wanted to make is that what is, I think, difficult for most people, if you see an area that's white, okay, that means it's good septic soils. But what does that mean? Does that mean it's good for one house or for 40 houses? And when you introduce a water company like you do partially have in Washington Depot, that greatly expands the development potential. So, and as an example, my field, 13 houses, is essentially on 4 acres because that's all they use for the houses and the septic. And they could have probably put twice as many houses, apartments, and townhouses on that property. So when I look at the village centers and I see, a parcel that's white or just barely yellow, well, that's great. It's developable. But what is it? Is it 4 bedrooms? Is it 100 bedrooms? And so I think I'm not sure how easy it would be to get that information, whether one has to basically get an engineer or maybe the health department could do it. But that to me would really enhance our ability to understand what the potentials and opportunities are. That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
I could comment on that briefly. I mean, Chris, we could talk about it later off camera, as it were. But in general, the only way you really get that kind of information is with perks and deeps. And that's something that's typically done by an applicant, not by the town.
right.
So as much as I would love to know the septic capacity for every parcel in the depot or in Marbledale, there's there's no way you're going to get any entity to pay for that. That's usually done, on a project basis. That's just kind of the way it's always worked. And I don't know of, I don't know of any way to do that as a community that wouldn't cost a bucket of money.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, I think it's an interesting concept. I was wondering if in the narrative somewhere, we can just explain that there's a range, for the person hasn't gone through the process of trying to get a project approved before. Maybe we could just say white zones in Washington have ranged from 10 bedrooms per acre to 1 bedroom per acre, or something, just to sort of let people know what good, a concept of what good might mean upon
But
testing.
that's all under the soil, what is it? The soil zoning, soil-based zoning that, we have to be careful there. We don't want to step on toes.
Well, so the irony, Leslie, about soil-based zoning is that, it's really about, health department approvals. It's good quality septic soils. And we arbitrarily elected to make a small lot 2 acres. The reality is, I can show you a development that Vic Nelson did in New Milford. And because he has a water company that he installed, all the houses are on 1/4 acre lots. They have all their septic systems and whatever 4 bedrooms on 1/4 acre lots. So, a 2 acre lot in Washington plausibly is 16 bedrooms. And actually, I think it could be, more than that. But anyway, so you could put definitely some examples together of how this has been done. Maybe there would be at least a couple properties that the town owns that we could just have an engineer with an auger do some very quick soil tests. They really can, interpret what the capacities are with a small amount of information. They need the larger amount, including perk tests and the deep holes for, designing the system and getting it approved by health. But certainly in terms of getting a wild ass guess, as they say in construction. It doesn't, I think Wayne's right, to do all the lots impossible, but at least to get a feeling for what the order of magnitude is. Are we talking 100 bedrooms in the depot, or are we talking 50? I don't know. Anyway.
Okay. Points to ponder. Because just remember, we're just coming up with suggestions. We're not building. We're just making a plan that's hopefully acceptable for the town. So, all right. Well, thanks, Chris. That was informative. Do we have
Thank you,
anything
Leslie.
else?
Leslie, I was just gonna say that it seems like our numbers in terms of our action committee have dwindled somewhat, and I'm wondering, now that we're sort of getting to the last big push, if there was a way to try to reactivate some of those members.
Well, I was wondering the same thing, so I can put out an email and see if people.
Maybe on for the next meeting, we can try to gently push.
Yeah, because I send it out to all the previous members. I send out the agenda with all the information, and it's on the website. So,
Yeah.
My hunch is that once there's actually a draft plan to look at, that they're all gonna come home.
Oh, they're gonna come out of the woodwork.
They're gonna have something to say about something.
10-4, okay.
Well, I think the committee, though, I think Dean might be on vacation, because we were just talking about that the other day. And Ralph, I know he came to, was he at the forum or the housing trust? He was at several of the meetings last month. So, and they're, I think, the only ones missing from the
missing. I can't remember.
Okay, I just want to make sure that as we get to the final push of this,
I agree.
yeah,
it'd be nice if we were all
that's all I
there.
have. Yeah.
I'll do a extended effort to remind everybody to come to the next meeting to see the proposed draft.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, I think that'll get.
Okay. I'll get their eyes open. How's that sound?
It sounds good, Leslie.
I'm very good at that, you know.
Right on.
Yeah, no, we've lost quite, well, not really. That's, I'd have to look at my minutes for the attendance, so, but I will do that. Okay, do we have anything else? Jocelyn, do you need anything else from us?
Nope, I'm good. Sorry, I'm just,
No, you have another meeting, I know. You
I
gotta
have
go.
another meeting and I have to feed my kids.
No, that's fine. I knew you had to do that, so that's not a problem. So does anybody else have any other information? All right, well, thank you, everybody, and we'll get the information from Jocelyn, and we'll see you next month.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Have a
Thank you,
good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.